Board of Trustees agreed to it as a student council, sort of a quirky initiative to encourage boys to be wearing hats outside. And they're allowed to wear them out on the playground and sports fields and that type of thing. But I'm not entirely sure what happens. They are very fashion conscious, and that's why they went for the boater, because they thought it looked like quite a fashionable object.
Yes, and it is, but it's not a posh look necessarily, as Lisa was implying, is it?
No, I wasn't implying that. I was just thinking that when I was at school, we would have kicked them around and thrown them like frisbees. I'm just surprised that any teenagers could be so good that they would actually wear a hat.
Actually, that's a good point, Bryn. It's probably a surprise to many people that the boys want a boater look.
Yeah, it is. I think they actually are. They just look really nice, and it's that thing of them being different from a cap or a floppy hat. So there's something unique about it.
Bryn, can I just ask you, Bryn, is there plans for spats and monocles?
I don't think so, no. No, I don't think we'll go down that track, although you never know next year.
Just checking.
Bring spats back. Bryn, thank you, and well done on the boaters. Bryn Jones, who's in charge of the Student Council at John McGlashan.
That's a great development.
It's a great development. We've spoken about the tremendous early success of the movie Moana, and we're all dying to see it, and we've talked about its music and how Maui is portrayed physically. A discussion on the BBC to do with the way Moana herself looks. Many people will have seen the trailers and may be puzzled by this new focus on Moana herself. She is said to possess an average body for a young woman, unlike previous Disney princesses who are unusually tall with tiny waists. This has been praised by Rebecca Haynes, author of The Princess Problem, guiding our girls through the princess-obsessed years. But the US talk show host Debbie Schlussel sees a thicker-framed Moana as political correctness gone too far. Quote, I think it tells girls they don't have to be fit. It's setting up girls for unhealthy lives in the future and also for disappointing romantic lives.
Disappointing romantic lives. I lolled when I heard that.
Can women ever win, Lisa, regarding portrayal of body size?
Oh, not amongst the Debbie Schlussels of the world. But, what do they mean about a thicker frame? I just don't get this. I don't get it. Is she much bigger than the average Disney princess?
I've seen the shorts, and I didn't notice at all that she had a thicker frame.
No, me neither. I'm not struck by that.
I thought that
really
she was
crazy.
Quite a good cartoon character.
Yeah, she needs to, have different princess expectations, obviously. Disney sets up a whole world of hurt there, but I'm not going to go into it.
Has this engrossment with it then, because obviously people have gone over this trailer with magnifying glasses, has this engrossment with all this just got out of hand?
It's another symptom. I won't start again, but it's people looking to manufacture outrage and victimhood and a moral story out of... There's nothing that happens now that doesn't have someone trying to create a sermon out of it.
And I think you would agree with that particular aspect of things, Lisa.
Well,
not asking you to agree with Stephen wholesale.
Yeah, I'm a princess and I might be a little thicker than most.
Yeah, you are.
You feel the pee under the mattress, would you?
I do. It's very uncomfortable, Stephen.
Lovely to have both of you on. Lisa Scott, thank you. Stephen Franks, you too.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye-bye. Bye,
Lisa.
Thanks for your company, everybody, and that is us for another day. The panel returns tomorrow. Checkpoint with John Campbell coming up now.
Hello everyone, you have caught me out because we've just finished an interview with Suzanne Lynch about Ray Columbus, who has died today, aged 74. So we are going to begin tonight by celebrating his life, looking back on She's a Mod 1964, the impact of that and of his generosity on the business. Suzanne Lynch talking about how much he gave. So we begin the program with that tonight. Then we go to the family of a fisherman still missing on the Kaipara harbour who speak about his legacy and their loss. That is a very moving interview. That's coming up. Parents who evacuated their children from Kaikoura, they can't get them back. The children can't get in, so we will speak to a mum tonight who desperately wants her 9 and 11-year-olds home again, and much more coming up after the pips and the news.
RNZ News at 5 o'clock. No mai, haere mai. Good afternoon, I'm Paul Brennan. One of New Zealand's best-known entertainers, singer Ray Columbus, has died at the age of 74. He died peacefully at his home in Auckland after battling ill health for the past 4 years. One of Columbus's former bandmates in The Invaders, Billy Christian, says his death is a great loss to him and to many others.
He was very well liked and a real professional to the end. Ray was always as far as from band members of all the Invaders, he always pushed the band and he always worked hard to get it going. He never pushed himself further than the other guys in the band. He always kept us equal.
Billy Christian there. The group's best-known song, She's a Mod, was released in 1964 and they cemented their place in New Zealand music history when it reached the top of the charts in Australia. They were the first New Zealand group to record an entirely original New Zealand album, Original Numbers. Ray Columbus won many awards and was given an OBE in 1974 for services to the music industry. It's been revealed a total of 17 schools used seclusion rooms on children this year. The Education Minister, Hekia Parata, ordered a review following revelations schools had been placing disruptive children in locked, small cell-like rooms. Ms Parata says all the schools have stopped using them, and she's now asked a parliamentary select committee to consider adding a law change to make the rooms illegal.
The effect would be to make it clear what the definition of seclusion is and what it is not, because we are not ruling out time-out or low sensory rooms or any of those.
Hekia Parata says the public will also be invited to make submissions. Kaikoura parents whose children were evacuated say they're finding it frustrating trying to get them home again. Schools in the district reopened this week, but with reduced rolls because up to a third of the children have left town or been evacuated. Kaikoura remains cut off by road except for daily army convoys of essential supplies. Kerry King says her 3 daughters were terrified during the earthquakes and she decided to send them out to stay with her sister in Christchurch, but now she says she can't get them home.
They should be with me. I'm their mother. And now I've got a 9-year-old daughter that's ringing me every second hour asking if the roads are open or have I got them on a plane. And it's just, I checked it out again last night and I booked out till the 9th of December. So that's helicopters and planes.
A Kaikoura parent, Kerry King there. Parliament has gone into urgency to pass 2 bills to help fast-track the response to quake-hit Kaikoura and surrounding areas. The emergency legislation allows work to be carried out without the need for a resource consent, including dredging Kaikoura Harbour. The first bill brings forward the start date of recently passed civil defence legislation that can require building owners to undertake earthquake assessments of their properties. A father whose son died after being arrested in Napier says his son attacked him that night with a kosh, hitting him repeatedly in the head. Raymond McPeak gave evidence today in the Napier District Court where 4 police officers are charged with assaulting his son with a weapon. The 76-year-old said his son Gregory appeared to have been drinking and struck him with a kosh in the head. Mr McPeak said he eventually managed to get the weapon off his son, but at one stage he thought he was not going to survive the struggle. Officers later found Gregory McPeak parked at Napier's West Shore, where they tasered, pepper-sprayed him and set dogs on him. The court's been told his death had nothing to do with the actions of the officers. A Manawatu real estate company has been ordered to pay more than $1 million for price fixing. Manawatu 1994, which trades under the LJ Hooker name, is the second company in the region to appear in court after admitting a breach of the Commerce Act. Adriana Weber reports.
The Commerce Commission filed proceedings against the company in December last year, alleging it and other agencies had agreed with each other that they would get vendors to pay the cost of listing their properties on Trade Me. It has been fined $1.25 million in the Auckland High Court. Justice Gilbert said at least 11 real estate agencies were involved in the price-fixing agreement, which had the potential to affect a large number of consumers. Earlier this year, the Manawatu company Unique Realty was ordered to pay $1.25 million for price fixing over advertising. This is Adriana Weber.
It's nearly 5 minutes past 5. On to sport. A flurry of wickets has set back Pakistan's late bid for victory in the second cricket test against New Zealand in Hamilton, needing 369 to win. Pakistan initially appeared to be playing for the draw, but since they've picked up the run rate only to lose 3 quick wickets. A short time ago, they were 200 for 4, with 21 overs remaining in the day. New Zealand lead the series 1-0. The New Zealand heavyweight boxer Joseph Parker has taken issue with his trainer Kevin Barry ahead of his upcoming WBO world title fight in Auckland. Barry rates Parker's opponent, American Andy Ruiz, as the favourite for the December 10th fight and believes Ruiz has better hand speed than his charge. But Parker says he will prove Barry wrong.
Andy does have fast hands, but I believe I'm faster. So I'll prove Kevin wrong come fight night that I'll be the faster fighter. And I think Kevin did say that Andy is the favourite, but he didn't say I was going to lose. Or he didn't say he was going to beat me. This is my time.
Joseph Parker there. New Zealand's most capped men's hockey player, Phil Burrows, has announced his retirement from international hockey. Burrows made his debut in 2000 and has played 343 tests in a career which saw him compete at 3 Olympic Games, 4 Commonwealth Games and 4 World Cups, but failed to make the side for this year's Rio Olympics. The 36-year-old is also the Black Sticks' most prolific goal scorer of all time. That's the news.
On December the 3rd, Mount Roskill chooses a new Member of Parliament. Labour says it'll spend more than $500 million on light rail.
I just know that this problem is getting worse and worse. We can't build more roads to get our way out of this problem.
House prices are deterring teachers, but Nationals promised incentives.
We have already speeded up the consent process. We have actually doubled the number of places that are being consented per year in Auckland.
And with over half the population born overseas, newcomers say the main parties are out of touch. After 8 a.m. tomorrow, the main candidates debate. Morning Report, weekdays from 6 on RNZ National.
Then on 9 to noon, journalist and documentarian David Farrier has uncovered a network of predators using YouTube to get children to create fetish pornography. And after 10, deep-sea diver David Beckett, who spent his career salvaging, welding and treasure hunting on the bottom of the ocean. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon after Morning Report on RNZ National.
Weather now, we have the short forecast from Met Service updated about an hour ago, taking us through to midnight tomorrow, Wednesday. Northland, Auckland, Coromandel Peninsula, Waikato and Bay of Plenty, cloudy periods, scattered showers in Waikato tomorrow night. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, it'll be mainly fine. However, showers develop in Hawke's Bay tomorrow afternoon. Waitomo to Manawatu, that includes Taupo, Taumaranui and Taihape. Cloudy periods, isolated showers for the rest of today with a period of rain spreading north tomorrow. Horowhenua, Kapiti Coast, Wellington, Waitarapa and Tararua District. Cloud increasing this evening and rain develops in the morning tomorrow, possibly heavy easing in the afternoon. Marlborough and Nelson, cloud increasing, scattered rain developing tonight, clearing in the morning tomorrow. Canterbury, mainly fine today, becoming cloudy tonight. A few showers will develop. Bulla and Westland, periods of rain, some heavy falls, easing to a few showers south of Hokitika before the end of today. Showers and rain clearing early tomorrow. Otago, excluding Clutha, a few showers. They should clear up in the morning. Southland, Fiordland and Clutha, scattered showers. And for the Chatham Islands, it'll be fine for the rest of today. Just a few showers tomorrow. It's exactly 8 minutes past 5.
She's a mom. 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 Yeah, 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 yeah. She's a mom. She's a mom. Yeah, yeah. She's a mom. She's a mom. She won't.
Kia ora everyone, we begin tonight with the death of Ray Columbus. In 1964, when the Beatles were on their way to such immense fame that John Lennon would describe them as bigger than Jesus, Ray Columbus briefly, wonderfully, outrageously became a kind of Antipodean version, storming the charts in Australia and then in New Zealand with a song that not a person who was living in Australasia then won't remember with a smile. She's a mod. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ray Columbus was 74. He died today peacefully at home after a long illness, but to many people he'll always be that gorgeous young man, his upper body wobble dance, his haircut, his smile, his clothes. He was brilliant and he was ours. And also, as Suzanne Lynch just reminded us, he was generous and encouraging to other musicians too.
We have. He's been part of New Zealand music for so many years. And gosh, I first met Ray when I was only just 14 or 15 in the Chicks, you know, so. And he was my manager right through that time. And then also as a soloist, he was my manager. He was the one that pushed me out on stage when I was too nervous to walk out on my own.
It's funny,
you know.
When I've been talking to people about him this afternoon, that sense of generosity, that role as mentor, as encourager, as advocate.
That's the one. That's what I think he should be besides his music, you know, he was such a supporter of New Zealand artists and just New Zealand music, getting New Zealand music played, just supporting anybody who had a problem with a contract. The first person he went to was always Ray Columbus.
Because he knew, he'd been there and done that, right? He'd lived it, he'd scaled the absurd and lofty heights, and he knew the business.
That's right. He knew the business, and he was happy to share his knowledge, which I think was an absolute treasure.
The other thing, and you know, youngsters won't know what this was like because they've had Lord and they've had Crowder, and well, you know, they've seen New Zealand musicians succeed overseas. Mm-hmm. But what Ray did is he smashed the New Zealand ceiling, didn't he? By going to #1 in Australia before he went to #1 here, and having a kind of hysteria attached to him across the Tasman. He redefined our sense of what was possible in pop culture terms.
Absolutely, he did. And he was one of the first artists to go to the States too and you know, do some work there. And Australians love him. He's still got a big following there, I'm sure. But here I remember touring with Ray in 1968 and 69, and the girls were just screaming and pulling at his clothes. I mean, it was just an amazing time.
So you were still getting all that Beatles-esque stuff, because I sort of thought that was 64, 65, but that just continued, all that screaming. They just loved him.
Right through to when I was working with him in 68, absolutely.
And it didn't go to his head, did it?
Not at all. No. Ray was the most positive, happy, whistling person.
Whistling.
He always, I'll miss his whistle. But I've remained friends with him. He was like a big brother to me. So while he's been ill over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been visiting him regularly. And he also managed my son, Andy Lynch, instead.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, he kind of, I'm getting a bit carried away here, but he did to them what he did to you, which was he gave them a pat on the back and said, go for it, you guys are fantastic.
That's right, yep. He was so encouraging to everybody, really, and yeah, he was a great man, he really was.
We say that when people die, don't we? And sometimes we gild the lily a little bit, but I think with Ray it was true, because he survived the business and understood what mattered.
That's right. And I always say to people, and have always said, I went to the Ray Columbus School of Music because he taught me professionalism. He and Kevin Moore taught a lot of us professionalism. You know, when we were doing Come On, we were always on time, dressed right. You always performed at the top of your game. Regardless of how you were feeling, the show always went on. You know, I mean, he was just a great mentor to me.
Suzanne Lynch talking about Ray Columbus. We've also spoken to his archivist, Grant Galanders, who was a friend for many, many years. It's a lovely interview, much longer, and we will put that up online very shortly. Let's go to Kaipara now, where a community is grieving the loss of 8 men, one of whom is still missing at sea. 3 days after the Francie charter fishing boat capsized, crossing the bar in really treacherous conditions, the family of Taulangi Afamasanga are keeping vigil at the Parakai wharf in the hope the sea will return his body. Earlier this afternoon, Taulangi's daughter, Amy Yero, and then his niece, Barcelona Afamasangi, told me about their father and their uncle.
So today myself and the family have come down here down to Parakai Wharf, because this was the last place that my dad was. This was the last place his feet were before he jumped onto that boat. So we just wanted to come and feel the land and the surroundings that he was before he hopped onto that boat on Saturday. So, yeah.
I don't know what to ask you, because all the questions seem redundant, and it must be such a tough time for you and your family, because what a wonderful man your dad was.
He really was. We're all barely hanging on at the moment. It's hard to breathe, it's hard to eat, it's hard to have a shower, be warm at home in the comfort of your own home. We don't know where he is. He's out there somewhere, cold, wet, shivering. We don't know if he's alive or if he's passed away out there. We don't know if he's hungry. So at the moment we're really taking it hard, especially at night time. When everything's so calm and everything's so still, we don't know where he is, so we just really want him home. It's really hard at the moment.
Yeah, I bet. Can we talk about the trip? It was a wonderful day for the boys, and they loved their fishing trips.
Yeah.
And I know your dad loved his fishing, but it was also about bringing fish home for everyone, right?
Yes, that's right. They loved fishing, and they went fishing at least once a month, but the main purpose of them going out fishing was to always bring home fish for their friends and their family. They really wanted to care for their family and feed their families, so that was one of the main purposes why they actually went out all the time, was to bring food home for their families. Yeah.
And did you ever talk about that harbour and that bar, and that it was a particularly tough, demanding piece of water? Was that ever a conversation that you had with your dad, or was it something that he just didn't talk about?
No, well, Mum was saying to me, because she usually goes out fishing with them, it just so happened that she decided not to go because she said it was cold, and it wasn't summer yet, so it wasn't hot enough for her to actually go out, so she decided to stay that day and let him go to fishing. But she said to me, it is so rough out there, so dangerous. When they go out with the waves, but when they come back in, it's just anything can happen. It's so rough out there, and we can't understand why they would have gone out there if it was so rough. So we're still trying to ask questions in our minds why they may have gone out that day. We are aware that out there, that's where they can catch really beautiful large fish, so that may have been the decision that they had taken that day. We don't know. We can't blame anyone either, because it would have been potentially a collective decision for them to all go out. We don't know, so we can't speculate, and we can't blame anyone for what's happened.
Had he been on that boat before? Had he been on the Frontsea before, your dad?
Yes, multiple times. He's been on there at least once a month. At least once a month he'll go out fishing.
And bring back a great catch of snapper, right?
Always. And he'd always give them to his friends and his family. So he was always on that boat and always came home with a great catch. Always. Yeah.
Amy, you've got your cousin, I think, Barcelona, standing beside you, and we're going to talk to her in a sec, but who else is out there? Is your mum there? Who else is there?
Yeah, so my mum's here, my two aunties, my other cousin, and my husband's out here today.
Just to be with your dad?
Yeah, just to talk to him, give him some flowers, write him a little letter, just to know that we're thinking of him and we want him to come home. We want him to come home, yeah.
Hello.
Hey Barcelona, it's John. It's so nice to talk to you. I'm so
Hi,
sorry.
John.
Hello, I'm so sorry about your uncle. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Barcelona, tell us about Taulangi. What was he like? What are you thinking of when you're there?
Just the thought of being here just gives me great memories of him just being a real humble, caring family man. Whatever we needed, he was always there. Growing up, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. Mum was just a single mum, and he was our backbone of our family and the foundation that held it down for us. He schooled us, he supported us no matter what, and he was just such a proud man, and whatever we were trying to pursue in our life, he was just always there and so proud. And just standing here today, it just still seems so unreal, because he should be here with us. We should be all here together with him.
So he was more than an uncle to you. Did he support your family and encourage you and help raise you and support your mum and all that stuff?
He did. He was like a father to me, and he was the third youngest of their 10 siblings, and he acted like he was older out of everyone. He was just a loving man. Never complained about anything in life. He always tried to achieve everything, and he always seemed to make it so easy.
he just had that calm sense of aura about him. And he brought that into our family, because our family can be quite chaotic, but he was just the only peaceful, calm one. Always talks with a smile on his face. And the last time I spoke to him was Friday afternoon. I was home alone because most of my family were in Australia on holiday. And he asked me, "Are you okay? Do you need any food? Are you alright?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay. Well, I just thought I'll let you know I'm going fishing tomorrow, so I'll see you Sunday morning with a good catch." Sunday morning, I was still waiting for him.
Oh, Barcelona, gee. Barcelona, were they safety conscious, these boys? Do you think they would have had life jackets on as they were coming back in over the bar?
From what I believe and heard that when me and my cousin talked about, we were told that there were life jackets on board, but we are not too sure if they were worn. And we just want to send a message out there to those who decide to go out there fishing. Just take caution and just be prepared and be safe, because anything can happen.
Barcelona, you and Amy have done Taolangi so proud. Seriously. We were talking to Barcelona, who was Taolangi's niece, and to Amy, who was his daughter. We recorded that interview earlier this afternoon when they were out standing at the dock where he was last seen, where he left land on Saturday to go out on that fishing trip. His body has still not been recovered. It's 22 minutes past 5. You are with Checkpoint. Thank you for being with us. We've just got a lovely obituary in on Ray Columbus, and we will play that a bit later. Died today, age 74. Suzanne Lynch saying what an immense contribution he made to the industry, not just through the Invaders, of course, and his own work, but the way he mentored and supported people. And Grant Galandis, his archivist, is also given us a lovely interview, and that is online, and we do recommend it if you're a Ray Columbus fan. Right, let's move to another of the very big stories that has taken place at the moment. Kaikoura, of course, and the aftermath of the earthquakes. Controlled public convoys are to be allowed on the inland road in and out of Kaikoura from tomorrow morning. In the last few minutes, a briefing has been held in the town. The New Zealand Transport Agency, NZTA, has taken over control of the road and is scheduling controlled convoys in both northern and southern directions. The first open period is for northbound light vehicles only tomorrow morning. So that's from Christchurch to Kaikoura between 8 and 10 o'clock, and in the other direction between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. So some actual toing and froing traffic is about to occur. It will come as a relief for parents who evacuated their children from Kaikoura. As Chris Bramwell discovered, they're angry their kids haven't been able to return because flights are limited and the town has been isolated.
Kerry King says her 3 daughters were terrified during the earthquakes, and when it came to decide whether to evacuate, she decided to fly them out by helicopter to stay with her sister in Christchurch. But now she says she can't get them home.
Me, I believe it's the wrong thing. They should be with me. I'm their mother. So, and now I've got a 9-year-old daughter that's ringing me every second hour, asking if the roads are open, or have I got them on a plane, and it's just, I checked it out again last night and I booked out till the 9th of December. So that's helicopters and planes.
Kerry King says she hasn't seen her girls for 12 days now, which is the longest they've ever been apart. And yesterday was her 11-year-old's birthday, the first she's missed. She says she opted not to go so she could help with the recovery in her role as a Māori warden. But she didn't realise her daughters would be away for so long.
We were under that assumption that they were going to get brought back as well, because originally we were told they were going to get sent down, a couple of days rest and then be brought back. And it was so they could have a shower and get some good food into them, because it was only just rations here and whatever else. And then everyone sort of got stuck there.
Fang Yang and her husband David evacuated their 9-year-old son Mason in the days after the quake so he could stay with his grandmother in Auckland. But Ms Yang says Mason's grandmother is 87 and is finding it tough looking after a 9-year-old. She says Mason tells her every night on the phone that he wants to come home.
Yeah, I'm not happy, and I can hear. If his grandma is stressed out, he won't be happy, obviously.
Yeah, and what kind of information have you had from officials about whether you can get him back or how you can get him back?
Apparently, they said I'm not qualified to get any help, so I have to organise it myself. But I haven't got anyone to help up Auckland. Yeah, so it's tough.
Feng Yang says she could not leave with her son as she's a nurse at the local hospital, so had to stay to do her job. Marty Rogers is coordinating the Recovery Assistance Centre in the town. She says the children are starting to fret being away from their parents, which in turn is stressing the parents out.
I've only been here since Friday and I must talk to at least 3 to 4 families a day about the fact that they want to get their kids home. And on Sunday at the White Ribbon Day, just sat there amongst the people and chatted to different ones, and they're all starting to talk, well, we want to get our kids home now.
Marty Rogers says most people are holding out hope that Inland Road will reopen soon so they can drive out and get their kids or have them brought back in, but no date has been set. Kei Kaikoura mō te hōtaka o te ahiahi, ko Chris Bramwell-Aho.
26 minutes past 5. Let's escape the heaviness and the sadness of the day and immerse ourselves in the story of radio broadcaster Gary McCormack, who says he will head to court in protest after being banned by Air New Zealand from flying with them for 2 years. At least he thinks that's what happened. He's slightly confused at present. He knows he went into the Koru Lounge when he's not a member, but he says he'd been delayed, and he'd had enough, so he was staging a form of protest. I spoke to him a short time ago and asked him what he thinks he did.
I gather a couple of things happened. One in 2011, we were all alive back then, and another at October, during October Labour Weekend, I'd organised a reunion of old surfers from all around the place and overseas, and it was a private matter, and I was trying to head to Wellington, but unfortunately we sat on the tarmac for ages and 40-odd minutes, and then I got off and they said they'd get me on another plane, and they didn't put me on until 2 planes later. By this time I was a bit cross, but I didn't swear at anybody. I said, I'll go to the Koru Lounge and have a drink at your expense. Seeing as I've wasted my entire afternoon, I've got all these guests waiting for me in Wellington. And so into the Koru Lounge I went, and I'm not a member, you see.
No, I'm staggered. I'm staggered you're not a member as a MediaWorks employee. I thought that Mark Weldon would have sorted you out on that front.
Well, it's a good point you raised. I used to be one, but then there was a bit. They stopped allowing you to take guests in and family members and people you vaguely knew. So I cancelled my subscription.
My heart bleeds. Look, you are a breakfast radio host for a highly successful. I mean, you're earning a fortune, Gary McCormack. Join the bloody Koru Club.
Well, no, it wasn't really about the Koru Club. It was about the fact that I know Air New Zealand has a problem with getting things right. It's just, I think we should put engineering difficulties in our national anthem. It's become a byword. And I lost my opportunity to catch up with my friends and make all the arrangements, and it just wasn't good enough. And that's the reason why I protested. And that's where it ends.
So this wasn't you being cheeky or having an overwhelming sense of entitlement or any of those things that we might unkindly read into this. This was you staging a sit-down protest.
Absolutely. As you probably know, John, I've had a bit of a history of when I don't think things are done right and fairly and people are treated properly for the money they spend on things, I do protest and I continue to do that. So this is what this is about. But I am astonished that we have within Air New Zealand a secret security cell, because they don't give you their phone number, nor do they have an address, and they have a meeting behind closed doors and they ban people for 2 years. I'm a banned citizen. This hasn't happened in Western society for quite a long time. I'm surprised at that.
I'm struck, Gary McCormack, if my memory serves me correctly, by the fact that you get exercised at airports. You were the man who refused to pay the departure tax in Palmerston North, weren't you?
Precisely. Precisely for exactly the same reason. Why would I pay, as I pointed at the time, to fly from one New Zealand airport to another? It was a rort, and so I protested then too, yes.
Right. So the thing to do is, if you're going to get on the wrong side of you, don't do so within proximity to a plane.
Well, that's probably right. I do seem to have a few problems around airports, but none of the problems that I'm being accused of. So the good news is, here's the good news, folks. Even though there is some sort of secret police force in Air New Zealand, that they don't have to front up to you, they don't have to accuse you face-to-face, and you're not entitled to give any defence, we still have a court system in New Zealand, and we've still got wonderful lawyers, and I will meet these people. So
wait a sec, this is actually serious, isn't it? I mean, I've been making light of it. You've been banned from flying on Air New Zealand. Is that a statement of fact?
That's what they've told me in a letter, yes, which I've just referred to Hugh Rennie here in his chambers. Yes, they have.
So wait a second, you can afford Hugh Rennie, can you?
Oh, most definitely. Listen, I will mortgage my house and send my children to slavery to make sure that justice is done here. So believe me, we're very excited at the prospect of sorting this out. But I just want to see my accusers. You'd be the same, John.
Were you rude to anyone? Did you shout or raise your voice? Did you belittle or humiliate or any of that kind of stuff that actually a good employer would want to protect their staff from?
Well, hold on a minute. That's a long list. Where do you want me to start? I didn't shout at anyone. I can't tell you too much about what I said, but rest assured, I've been around like you, John. I know how to handle myself. So I criticised their behaviour and their performance, but I'm allowed to do that as a consumer. I did that. What I did do was naughty, 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 naughty. I went to the corridor down for the membership as a protest.
And did they ask you to leave?
Oh, yes, they did. They said they'd call security. I said, that's a good idea. And then a lovely policeman turned up, who I knew vaguely, who knew my father. We had a bit of a chat, and he explained that they can trespass you. That's what he said at the time. So I said, all right, okay, I better get out of here. And I left. So it was all done in good nature, no problem at all. But Air New Zealand's decided to take it a step further. So fair enough. Let's do it.
So you are saying to Air New Zealand, I'm getting in Hugh Rennie, who 1 hour of Hugh Rennie is equivalent to an annual Kaikoura Club membership. You know that, don't you?
When you look at it that way, probably I've done the wrong thing. But I like Hugh, and he's also a man of principle, and he's a fellow I love being around. And plus, of course, you don't know, John, but I did Legal System 1 and got 53% at Victoria University years ago.
Right.
So I've always aspired to being, the whole courtroom drama thing. So this is all grist to my mill.
So Air New Zealand, you're saying, I'll see you in court?
I guess so. We did reach out to them at one point through friends to say, look, this has got a bit out of hand, and don't you think there's a bit over the top? But they didn't respond to that. So, okay, I have to find out who these people are that are accusing me of something and hear them say it to my face, and then I can talk to them. But this is the only way we can do it, I think.
Where do you draw the line as an airline? For example, everyone else on that plane presumably wasn't able to get to Wellington when they wanted to. Were they all able, do you think? And I think this is an important question to answer. Should they have all en masse, every single passenger on that plane, been able to go and sit in the Kaikoura lounge and have a glass of something?
I think they should have been offered that. Yeah, I do. I think what we have a lot of flights in New Zealand for some reason are delayed or cancelled. I mean, everybody's got a story. What needs to be done is the big companies who do this should actually turn to the passengers and say, what would you like to compensate, in this case, for your holiday weekend being ruined?
And it was ruined?
Well, it was severely curtailed. I mean, I didn't get to see I'd arranged the Surfers reunion. I didn't get to see the venues. I didn't get to talk to the caterers. I didn't get a chance to talk to the band. I missed out on meeting people I was supposed to meet on the evening in question. So, yes, damage was done.
Gary McCormack, banned for 2 years from flying with Air New Zealand. It is 27 and a half minutes to 6. Coming up on Checkpoint, the Minister of Education, Kaipara, reveals the use of seclusion rooms in schools was more prevalent than first thought, certainly by the Ministry anyway. We've been looking at this story for some time and the numbers always seemed larger than had originally been stated. Anger from tourism and accommodation operators about a proposed Auckland visitor levy. Phil Goff raised this on the program last night. And immigrants will have to financially support their parents for a decade if they follow them to New Zealand. All of that and more before 6 o'clock. But first, here's Paul Brennan with the RNZ headlines.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. One of New Zealand's best-known entertainers, singer Ray Columbus, has died at the age of 74. He died peacefully at his home in Auckland after battling ill health for the past 4 years. One of Columbus's former bandmates in The Invaders, Billy Christian, says his death is a great loss to him and to many others. Suzanne Lynch, one half of the duo The Chicks, told Checkpoint he was a great mentor. Controlled public convoys are to be allowed on the inland road in and out of Kaikoura from tomorrow morning. The Transport Agency has taken over control of the road and is scheduling controlled convoys in both north and south directions. The first open period is for northbound light vehicles only, tomorrow morning between 8 and 10 o'clock, and in the other direction between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. Parliament has gone into urgency to pass 2 bills to help fast-track the response to quake-hit Kaikoura and surrounding areas. The emergency legislation allows works to be carried out without the need for a resource consent, including dredging Kaikoura Harbour. It's been revealed a total of 17 schools used seclusion rooms on children this year. The Education Minister ordered a review following revelations schools had been placing disruptive children in locked, small cell-like rooms. Kaipara says all the schools have stopped using them, and she's now asked a parliamentary select committee to consider adding a law change to make the rooms illegal. A Manawatu real estate company has been ordered to pay more than $1 million for price fixing. Manawatu 1994, which trades under the LJ Hooker name, admitted a breach of the Commerce Act. And in sport, New Zealand need 4 wickets in the final hour of play in the second cricket test against Pakistan in Hamilton to achieve a series clean sweep. Victory is beyond Pakistan, who were set 369 to win, and a short time ago were 222 for 6. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather will be at 6.
Thanks, Paul. We will update you on the situation with the Black Caps against Pakistan. We're keeping an eye on their chase for victory. But let's turn to business news now with Nona Peltier. Insurer Tower. Nona, I'm going to cough. Tell us about Tower while I cough.
Well, yes, the insurance company Tower, they've reported a much larger loss, first half loss. They had to write down the value of their IT systems, and they had to set aside more for the Canterbury earthquakes 6 years on. They're still working through that. And anyways, their loss widened to $21.5 million. That's $21.5 million. That's 3 times more than their loss the year earlier of 6.6. So that gives you some context of how difficult it is. They say that the Canterbury earthquakes and the way that has been managed has reflected very badly on the company. And so they're going to aim to resolve that by separating out basically the reinsurance and the claims into a new company, which they're going to call, I love this company name, Runoff Co.
Right.
So now Runoff Co. is going to deal with the legacy claims, and Tower is going to move on with its business and hopefully give it a fresh start because it has really been struggling.
Catherine is bringing me in a glass of water. Nona has been speaking like a consummate professional. I've been turning blue
There
in the
you go.
corner.
Have some water.
Thanks,
There you
Nona.
go, John.
Almost did a call Tower myself then.
Yeah, so anyways, but basically they're going to talk to the Reserve Bank about making sure they have adequate capital to separate these companies or separate into the runoff company. That's subject to shareholder approval in March.
Okay, you don't know the answer to this question because no one's going to be straight on this, but obviously they want to separate an area which is financially problematic and from an area where they are just doing normal business. But is this also reputational control?
Absolutely. I mean, they acknowledge that. They say that it's been really difficult on the company. They say that basically, you know, they've been really disappointed with how the, what does it say here, little effective coordination between the EQC and the insurers. And this has dragged on for 6 years. They still don't have a good sense of how much the claims are. It's been extremely complex. The whole thing really needs to be dealt with separately so that the company can actually rebuild itself as well. So that's what the plan is there. And well, good luck to them.
Thanks, Nona. Synlait. So
Synlait.
Synlait Milk has increased its forecast milk payout for the current season. What's the new price?
$6. That matches what Fonterra has raised its price to.
Yeah, and they kind of had no choice, surely. They had to match, didn't they?
They were planning to match them. Well, I don't want to say planning to match them. They were planning to revise their forecast early in, say, February. That's when they normally do it. But they've moved it ahead because of the movement in commodity prices. However, they're still not confident about the medium to longer term outlook. That still is going to depend on what happens with demand in China. So for now, short term, good news for farmers. Longer term, maybe not. We'll find out. I guess we don't have a crystal ball here. But anyway, the NZ...
You do pretty well in the absence of a crystal ball, Nona.
That's me and the UK bookies, right?
Right.
The NZX Top 50 Index was barely changed. That was down just 1 point to 6,902. And the New Zealand dollar is trading at 70.7 US cents, 94.6 Australian and 57 pence.
Thank you so much, Nona Peltier. We appreciate it. It's 21 and a half minutes to 6. Parents at Dunedin's Sarah Cohen Special School say investigations into alleged abuse and seclusion of pupils are a massive beat-up and a witch hunt against excellent teachers. This morning, RNZ revealed the school is under multiple investigations for alleged abusive mistreatment of pupils, including children being hit, force-fed and having their wrists bent back. The school has been also using a dark seclusion room and a laundry. Now, the Education Minister, Hekia Parata, says the allegations are serious and her ministry is taking action. But the Minister also revealed today the use of seclusion is more widespread than was known and has happened at 17 schools this year. Our Otago Southland reporter Ian Telfer has the story.
There's been quick condemnation of the Sarah Cohen school allegations. The Human Rights Commission says it's extremely concerned because children with disabilities are some of society's most vulnerable youngsters. And the advocacy manager of the agency IHC, Trish Grant, says she's alarmed.
Certainly isn't consistent with contemporary teaching practice. So clearly there are some issues here around the competence and capability of the teacher, the support that he or she is getting. And, you know, this most teachers in schools would say, goodness, you know, that is absolutely not acceptable and it's unlawful.
But the situation's become more complex today after parents of pupils in the junior classroom being investigated contacted RNZ News to say there's another side to the story. The mother of a child said to have been force-fed says that never happened, and 2 teachers in question are some of the best her son ever had. The woman, who RNZ's agreed not to name, says she's repeatedly challenged the allegation, but the school won't listen.
It didn't matter what we said, particularly about the force-feeding incident. I said, well, we gave consent about dabbing food. Maybe that was misconstrued. So to see this in the paper or online about how my kid was allegedly force-fed, well, that's not true. And anybody who knows my child well enough would know full well the battle scars that would happen if you tried.
The mother says she doesn't believe the complaint about the seclusion room either.
Reading about the seclusion room, I have to laugh. What seclusion room in that classroom? I mean, the laundry room, they kept locked most of the time so that the kids like mine in particular wouldn't go into the bathroom area and start flooding everything, because autistic kids will do that.
Do you think, though, that that room was ever used as a sort of inappropriate lock-up space?
No.
The woman says the allegations have been pushed by a parent who's also on the Board of Trustees, but they're a misguided attack against great teachers. She says she's lost confidence in the school, but only since the complaint incident, and has now withdrawn her son. Her views were backed up by another parent spoken to today. The minister, Hekia Parata, says she's known about Sarah Cohen's special schools problems all year, and her ministry is dealing with it.
It's totally unacceptable, and that's why the ministry moved so quickly to take the action that they did, which is, you know, to determine that there should be another staff member in there in charge of these things. We get complaints from schools every day across the country, and the ministry is responsible for working out the seriousness of them, and this is a serious one, and that's why this level of action's been taken.
Ms Parata says the ministry's put in a limited statutory manager, and she's confident that person, Nicola Hornsby's, dealing with the issues appropriately. But the minister also revealed today the use of seclusion's more widespread than was known, and has happened at 17 schools this year. Ms Hornsby wouldn't speak to RNZ, however she says in a statement her employment investigation's ongoing and will probably take until the end of the year. In Dunedin for Checkpoint, Ian Telfer.
18 minutes to 6. Thank you for being with us on Checkpoint. Tourism and accommodation businesses say rolling out a proposed Auckland visitor levy nationwide is not the right way of going about raising the money needed to pay for tourism promotion and infrastructure. The Auckland Mayor Phil Goff says a 3 to 4% surcharge for hotel, motel, bed and breakfast and backpayers accommodation would raise up to $30 million, replacing the money currently paid for by ratepayers. So it's going to start as an Auckland thing if it happens, but there is a sense it will transfer nationwide. Anusha Bradley has been looking at this.
The Prime Minister John Key says if Auckland's visitor levy proves viable, it should be rolled out nationally. But the tourism and accommodation industry say it would not work nationally in its current form. The surcharge could add up to $20 a night for a stay in a 4- or 5-star hotel in Auckland. Saran Investments owns 15 hotels in Auckland, Queenstown and Invercargill, and says rising costs are already pushing up room prices. Its chief executive, Raman Saran, says a levy will mean hefty increases for customers.
In real terms, the customer will have to pay this $20 plus the 10% markup that we will make. So he will be paying $30 more or 30% more in some cases.
Mr Saran says a national levy would mean New Zealanders staying in another part of the country would pay more as well.
As it is, they are competing with the tourists because prices are going up because more tourists are coming in. In Queenstown and all, I can understand the customer will pay what he has to pay because he's coming for a vacation and doesn't bother what he's paying. But in other smaller towns, motels, etc., on the highways, everybody has to pay.
Hospitality New Zealand says it's unfair to single out commercial accommodation providers because they only benefit from 10% of total tourism spending in Auckland. Its General Manager of Accommodation, Rachel Shadbolt, also rejects the idea of rolling out any levy nationwide.
I would turn it around the other way and say, can we have a national discussion first? Because what we don't want is each individual council setting up its own system that might be slightly different to the council next door. It just becomes an administrative nightmare and also incredibly confusing.
The Chief Executive of Destination Queenstown and the Chair of Regional Tourism Organisations New Zealand, Graham Budd, says Phil Goff's visitor levy is fraught with difficulties. He says it assumes the cost will be passed on to the customer, but that doesn't always happen. Instead, he believes there's a better way of doing it.
What I actually favour, and I think most people do, is a visitor levy that is charged at the point of checkout or payment, if you like. So rather than being a cost on the business that's passed on, it is a direct cost, if you like, on the visitor. It's used very widely in North America and Canada. It's used very widely in Europe and in Asia. So very widely used around the world, very proven models and examples that New Zealand can learn from. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Graham Budd says councils are currently only allowed to raise money through rates, and a nationwide visitor tax, as he suggests, would require new legislation. A working group has been looking at ways to deal with the pressure on infrastructure linked to the tourism boom, and its report, which has been given to the Prime Minister, is expected to be made public in the next couple of weeks. For Checkpoint, Anusha Bradley.
11 people were injured on the campus of Ohio State University when a student veered his car onto the sidewalk, leapt out and stabbed several people with a butcher's knife. The attacker was shot dead within a minute by a campus police officer. He's been named as 18-year-old Abdul Atan, an immigrant from Somalia who was a permanent resident of the United States. Investigators are now examining his Facebook page to determine whether the attack can be regarded as terrorism. This report from CNN.
Tonight, university police naming the suspected attacker as OSU student Abdul Razak Ali Artan. A federal law enforcement official tells CNN he was a Somali citizen who lived in the area. A U.S. official says he was a legal permanent resident. Investigators are still working on determining motive and can't rule out terror at this point.
We have to consider that it is that possibility. We had an attack earlier this year with a man with a knife causing multiple injuries. So we're always aware that that's the potential, and we're going to continue to look at that. That's why our federal partners are here and helping.
Police say the attacker deliberately jumped the curb with a car and rammed into a group of pedestrians. A federal official tells CNN the car used in the attack was registered to a family member.
Around 9:52 a.m., the emergency dispatch center got a report that a vehicle had struck pedestrians.
He then continued to attack, slashing people with a knife.
He exited the vehicle and used a butcher knife to start cutting pedestrians.
Less than a minute later, the attacker was confronted by a police officer.
He engaged the suspect and he eliminated the threat. The suspect is DOA.
Within minutes of the attack, a campus-wide alert went out reporting an active shooter on campus, run, hide, fight. A federal law enforcement official tells CNN the gunshots reported may have been of the police officer shooting the attacker. On campus, students and faculty blocked doorways and hid while waiting for the all clear.
Our teacher ran in and locked the door, and at the same time we all saw we heard a bunch of sirens and a bunch of cop cars all just started flooding towards that area.
It's scary. It was really scary. We barricaded ourselves in our rooms like we were taught, turned off our lights, and just hunkered down.
The report from CNN ending there with the students at Ohio State University describing what happened. 11:30 to 6, home again. The Crown says 4 police officers used excessive force when they fired tasers and set dogs onto a wanted man in a parked car. 4 police officers with name suppression have gone on trial in the Napier District Court where they pleaded not guilty to charges of assault with a weapon. Our court reporter Edward Gay filed this report.
The Crown prosecutor Ben Vanderkolk said police officers were called to Raymond McPeak's home in Hastings in March last year after reports the 76-year-old had been beaten by his son armed with a weapon. Raymond McPeak was taken to hospital, but his son Gregory McPeak was nowhere to be found. Mr Vanderkolk said the police briefing that followed was important because it set the tone for the evening.
He was a huge chronic alcoholic and had previously been a drug user. He might be parked up somewhere drinking and contemplating suicide. And there was a suggestion that he may want to kill his father and his brother.
Mr van der Kolk said a police officer found Mr McPeak's two-door SUV parked up at Napier's West Shore. He put road spikes down to stop Mr McPeak escaping before calling for backup. The officers called out to Mr McPeak to get out of the car, but when they got no response, they decided to break the car's windows and use pepper spray on the 179 kg man.
Because of his size, members of the jury, may well be, and where he was, and perhaps because of the drugs and alcohol that he'd taken, which you're going to hear about in the course of this trial, Mr McPeak appeared to be somewhat resistant to the pepper spray.
Gregory McPeak lashed out at the police and kept the doors locked, despite efforts of the officers to get him out. 2 fired tasers through the passenger and driver's windows, and 2 police dogs were also let loose in the car.
He somehow managed to get one of the dogs tangled up in the wires of one of the tasers, the cables, and he held the other dog by the muzzle very firmly.
But when the officers finally got the car door open, Mr McPeak fell out and landed face down on the ground. He was unresponsive, and despite attempts by the police officers and later ambulance staff, he died. Mr van der Kolk said toxicology reports showed Mr McPeak had various drugs in his system, and the officers' actions had no part to play in his death. He said while police officers have the power to use force, it must be reasonable. He said in this case the officers used excessive force by firing tasers and letting dogs on Mr McPeak, who was confined in his car. But defence lawyers for the police officers told the jurors that they had to judge the circumstances as the officers saw them at the time. Doug Rishworth summed up the case like this.
You've got in front of you the agreed facts about Mr McPeak's medical condition, his weight. These were not matters known to any of these police officers. To them, they knew that he was a large man. To them, that equalled violent, aggressive, a man who had just coshed on the head his elderly father.
He said the officers had to do their job, and that was to arrest Mr McPeak. A lawyer for another of the officers, Jonathan Krebs, said jurors would be able to hear and see footage captured by the cameras in the tasers, but he said that was only 3 minutes of the entire event, which lasted much longer. The trial before Judge Philip Cooper and a jury is expected to last 2 weeks. Mō te hōtaka o te ahi ko Edward Gay aho.
Immigrants to New Zealand who now have to support their parents financially for a decade if they follow them here say the move could turn people away. New rules the government has introduced to cut spending on immigration have doubled the 5-year sponsorship period adult children sign up to when their parents receive approval to come to New Zealand. Here's Tom Furley.
The head of the Indian Central Association, B. Kubana, says it's part of the culture to look after family. Indians make up around 20% of new parent migrants, and he says the change does bring some concern for the community.
It just puts a bit of extra pressure on some, particularly the younger migrant families with young children and that. They have perhaps their own employment issues they have to deal with, and it's just an extra pressure in some ways.
The chairperson of Auckland's Bharatiya Samaj Charitable Trust, Jeet Sachdev, says 10 years is a long time, and some may consider going somewhere which looks after them better.
5 years is a pretty reasonable time, but if government thinks it is going to be 10 years, then what happens is that it will be sort of a deterrent to get the quality immigrants here.
The increase is the latest in a series of policy settings the government has changed because of concerns about immigrant numbers and costs. The parent category was frozen last month after the cap was reduced from 11,000 visas over 2 years to 4,000. Last month, the Immigration Minister Michael Woodhouse also commented that immigrants' parents were receiving government income support despite their children's sponsorship commitments. He said it was costing taxpayers tens of millions of dollars a year. Mr Sachdev, who is also a trustee of the Auckland Regional Migrant Services Charitable Trust, says people do let the system down.
You see, there are always some people who don't do the right thing. They just, one way or the other, sometimes there are people who they might abuse the system. But in general, it is our responsibility.
He says regardless of the sponsorship required, children should be doing their best to support their parents. An Auckland resident, Monica Mu, came to New Zealand from China 14 years ago, with her parents joining in 2013 under her sponsorship. Every year, about 5,500 parents of migrants settle in New Zealand, about half of whom are Chinese. Monica Mu, who agreed to financially support her parents for 5 years, will not be affected by the new rules. But she believes it is unlikely to have a huge impact on parents wanting to join their children.
So for them, 5, 10, whatever years, it's probably not going to make a difference to change their mind rather than coming to New Zealand to stay in China, because most of my generation, we are one-child family, so I don't think parents have an option to not come to New Zealand.
Immigration New Zealand says as it's not taking applications, there will not be many people affected in the short term. The policy affects only those who apply on or after the 21st of this month. For Checkpoint, Tom Furley.
A citizens' science initiative is helping to keep little blue penguins out of harm's way during the construction of a seawall extension in Taranaki. The Ngā Motu Marine Reserve Society and Project Hotspot provided data on penguin numbers, and volunteer inspections are being made at Urinui Beach while the wall is being built. Our Taranaki reporter, Robin Martin, has more.
About 50 of the at-risk little blue penguins call Urinui Beach home, nesting amongst the flax bushes in specially built boxes and under the batches. Project Hotspot coordinator Emily Roberts says the New Plymouth District Council agreed to delay construction of the seawall when it was made aware of how much penguin activity there is.
There was concerns about building the wall this time of year that it might disturb the nesting penguins. This is one of the nesting boxes that's closest to the wall, and you can see it's only a few metres away, and there'll be daily penguin checks to check that there's no penguins that are sheltering in the rocks that are going to be used to construct the wall.
Little blue penguins are New Zealand's smallest penguin, and they raise their chicks between July and November, and the young are just about to leave the nest for the first time. Ms Roberts says consents for the wall have also been altered to include a ramp for the penguins to climb to their nesting areas.
Penguins are really good climbers, but for the large boulders they'll struggle getting up anything that has a higher vertical height than 25 centimetres. So as a consequence, they used to come up the steps that used to be here for access. So that access will be, they'll make sure that that's there again.
Teresa Haston owns the Urinui Beach Camp. Mrs Haston and her 9-year-old son Aidan have volunteered to make sure the penguins are not in the construction zone.
So each morning before the contractor begins, we just do a walk past where he's working for the day and just make sure there's no penguins nesting, or especially once he starts stockpiling the rocks to make the wall, because they've had problems getting up the wall since all the erosion happened. DOC were concerned they may start trying to nest in the rocks.
Mrs Haston says the penguins are the stars of the camp.
Yeah, everyone loves the penguins. They're just wonderful. The batch on the corner just up here, number 1, they've actually got a perspex square in their floor in their lounge, so that people, when they stay in the batch, they can lift up the mat and see what's happening under the batch. So yeah, no, it's awesome.
The penguins come up on the beach after nightfall and head to sea to gather food early in the morning, leaving a trail of telltale tracks. The council's infrastructure manager, David Langford, says the birds have influenced the whole approach to the project.
We've adjusted the hours that we're actually actively working on the project, so that we're only working in the hours that the penguins aren't active and moving around on the beach. And the other thing, we've got a quite a strict process for doing pre-start inspections before each shift starts work.
The ground nesting penguins are vulnerable to predators such as feral cats, stoats and dogs, and back down on the beach, young Aidan Haston knows just how vital his role is.
I try and find tracks with Mum, and I try and find predator tracks as well. We're doing it so we know where they are.
Construction of the seawall extension is due to take 6 to 8 weeks, and penguin inspections will be done throughout its build. For Checkpoint, ko Robin Martin tēnei.
Robin Martin, who is Taranaki regional reporter and does a beautiful job. There's some lovely pictures, striking coastline along there. It is 55 seconds away from 6 o'clock. Let's have a burst of the sting. Kia ora everyone, you are with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Thank you for being with us. If this is all new to you, if you are just trying us out, we are also screening live on Freeview Channel 50, so you can watch us in the studio here in Auckland, and lots of our reporters providing us with pictures now, like Robin Martin just did from Taranaki, and lots of people joining us via Skype and live view. So we're still making radio, but you can watch it if you want to. Freeview Channel 50, streaming live on the RNZ website and also on YouTube. We've got a lot coming up after 6, and we'll tell you about it after 6, but first here's the Pips and then Paul.
RNZ News at 6. Good evening, I'm Paul Brennan. Controlled public convoys are to be allowed on the inland road in and out of Kaikoura from tomorrow morning. The New Zealand Transport Agency has taken over control of the road and is scheduling controlled convoys in both north and south directions. Chris Bramwell reports from Kaikoura.
The first open period will be for northbound light vehicles only tomorrow morning between 8 and 10 o'clock, and in the other direction between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. People who wish to travel into or out of Kaikoura will have to register online or by calling 0800 444 449 between 7 in the morning and 6 at night, Monday to Friday, to be included in the supervised convoys. A checkpoint will be in place both northbound and southbound to make sure only approved vehicles have access. Cyclists are not currently permitted on the road. Kei Kaikoura, ko Chris Bramwell aho.
A long-time friend of the entertainer Ray Columbus, Suzanne Lynch, says he was a performer who was ahead of his time. Columbus died today at his home in Auckland at the age of 74. He'd been battling ill health for the last 4 years. Lynch was a member of the Chicks, and she says she first met Columbus when she was 14 in the mid-60s.
I just remember thinking, wow, this is amazing, because girls would be screaming, fainting. I mean, he was just the biggest thing since sliced bread back then in those days. It was just fantastic.
Suzanne Lynch says Columbus taught her and others the importance of professionalism. She says Columbus and his band The Invaders were New Zealand's answer to the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. A parent at a Dunedin special school says investigations into alleged abuse and seclusion of pupils are a witch hunt against excellent teachers. This morning, RNZ revealed the school is under multiple investigations for alleged abusive mistreatment of pupils, including children being hit, force-fed and having their wrists bent back. The school has also been using a dark seclusion room in a laundry. But the mother of a child said to have been force-fed says the two teachers in question are some of the best her son ever had.
It didn't matter what we said, particularly about the force-feeding incident. I said, well, we gave consent about dabbing food. Maybe that was misconstrued. So to see this in the paper or online about how my kid was allegedly force-fed, well, that's not true. And anybody who knows my child well enough would know full well the battle scars that would happen if you tried.
The woman, who RNZ has agreed not to name, says she has repeatedly challenged the allegation, but the school will not listen. Investigators looking into the Kaipara harbour boating tragedy still don't know where the wreck is. 7 men died when the charter fishing boat Francie sank at the weekend while crossing the Kaipara Harbour Bar. An 8th man is missing, presumed drowned. The Transport Accident Investigation Commission now has 4 investigators in the area, interviewing survivors, family, the police and other witnesses. The chief investigator, Tim Burfoot, says the team is also collecting evidence, some of which is washed up on local beaches. The chief executive of Destination Queenstown says New Zealand should adopt a visitor tax that's already successfully used internationally. The Auckland Mayor, Phil Goff's idea of charging accommodation providers a 3 to 4% levy to pay for tourism marketing and infrastructure has been labelled by the industry as unfair and ill-conceived. Graham Budd, who is also the chair of Regional Tourism Organisations New Zealand, says it would be better to add a visitor surcharge to customers' hotel bills at the end of their stay, adding no extra costs to businesses.
It's used very widely in North America and Canada. It's used very widely in Europe and in Asia. So very proven models and examples that New Zealand can learn from. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
The chief executive of Destination Queenstown, Graham Budd, there. The police in Columbus, Ohio are investigating whether a stabbing rampage by a student at Ohio State University was a terrorist attack. 11 people were injured. The BBC's David Willis reports.
Mayhem at a university campus just after the Thanksgiving break, after a student jumped the curb and ploughed into a group of pedestrians. He then jumped out and started stabbing people with a butcher's knife before being shot and killed by the police. The attacker was later named as Abdul Razak Ali Atan, 18 years old, born in Somalia, raised in the United States. He was a student of Ohio State University. Intelligence agencies investigating the man's background and possible motives say it could have been a terror attack carried out by someone who was self-radicalised.
David Willis reporting there. It's 6:05. Sport now, and New Zealand have achieved an historic clean sweep over Pakistan with victory in the second cricket test in Hamilton by 138 runs. Needing 369 to win, Pakistan have been dismissed for 230. The tourists were 131 for none, but then lost 10 wickets for 99 runs. It's New Zealand's first series win over Pakistan in more than 30 years. The All Blacks fullback Ben Smith is weighing up his playing future, including heading overseas after next year's British and Irish Lions tour to New Zealand. Smith is one of several All Blacks coming off contract next year, alongside the likes of Sam Whitelock, Israel Dagg, Aaron Cruden, Malakai Fekitoa. The French top 14 club PAO are reportedly chasing Smith. The Highlanders fullback has arrived home from the All Blacks end-of-year tour and will mull his options over Christmas.
When everyone comes off contract, they look at their options, and that's something that I'm doing at the moment, but I'll get home and talk to my family and go from there.
Ben Smith. Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho has been charged with improper conduct by the English Football Association after he was sent off for the second time in a month. He faces a hefty fine and suspension. Mourinho was banished during United's 1-1 draw with West Ham after he kicked a water bottle down the touchline when one of his players was booked. He was fined $100,000 and suspended for a match for 2 previous incidents. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, Claire Bibby continues her odyssey through the World War II battlefields of Solomon Islands. If you can call a harbour a battlefield, our window on the world looks at women in the workforce in India. And this week's pundit, our Marxist historian Brian Roper, discusses eco-socialism as opposed to eco-fascism. And I want to know what he made of the late Fidel Castro. On Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
On to weather now, the short forecast from our Met Service. This takes us through to midnight tomorrow, Wednesday. And Northland, Auckland, Coromandel Peninsula, Waikato and Bay of Plenty, cloudy periods, scattered showers in Waikato tomorrow night. For Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, mainly fine. Those showers develop in Hawke's Bay tomorrow afternoon. Waitomo to Manawatu, including Taupo, Taumarunui and Taihape, cloudy periods, isolated showers for the rest of today. And then a period of rain spreading north tomorrow. Horowhenua, Kapiti Coast, Wellington, Wairarapa and Tararua District. Cloud increases this evening, rain developing tomorrow morning, possibly heavy, easing tomorrow afternoon. Marlborough and Nelson, cloud increases, scattered rain develops tonight, clearing in the morning tomorrow. Canterbury, fine for the rest of today, becoming cloudy tonight, then a few showers developing after that. Buller and Westland, periods of rain, some heavy falls, easing to a few showers south of Hokitika before the end of today. Showers and rain clearing early tomorrow. Otago, excluding Clutha, a few showers clearing in the morning tomorrow. Southland, Fiordland and Clutha, scattered showers. At the Chathams, fine for the rest of today, a few showers for tomorrow, Wednesday. It's exactly 6:08.
Thanks, Paul. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, controlled public convoys allowed in and out of Kaikoura for the first time from tomorrow morning. A Havelock North resident turning on the sprinklers in his backyard to protest against water bottling rights, and the monkey heist that's gripped Australia is over. But before all of that, one of New Zealand's best-known singers, Ray Columbus, has died at the age of 74. He died peacefully at his home in Auckland after battling ill health for the past 4 years. Here's Megan Whelan.
Ray Columbus, often referred to in the media as the godfather or modfather of New Zealand pop music, will be remembered for his stylish dress, his unique dancing style and the songs that repeatedly took him up the charts. The Christchurch-born and raised entertainer joined Warwick Burke on New Year's Eve 2009, telling him that his somewhat overbearing father triggered his love of entertaining way back in 1948.
Dad told me when I was 6 that you were going to be Fred Astaire, and I had no idea who he was. And he was a big guy. He was 16 stone and about 6 foot tall. I took after Mum. She was a petite little woman. And he said, you're going to, I'm putting you on the stage, you're going to be a tap dancer and singer. And I, so when he says that, you say, yes, Dad. I had no idea what it involved. And my sister, Patricia, also went to the same lessons. And she was much better than I was and much more dedicated. But I think I was just a natural ham.
Around 1960, he was offered the lead vocalist job for a Christchurch dance group, the Downbeats. In 1961, he formed Ray and the Drifters, which eventually morphed into Ray Columbus and the Invaders. Here he tells Warwick Burke about their influences.
We were also big fans of Buddy Holly and Everly Brothers and Elvis and Hank Williams. I mean, all of those influences into the R&B thing. And it happened to us at the same time as it happened to the Beatles and the Stones or whatever in the UK.
The group had a number of firsts in New Zealand music. They were the first Kiwi group to record an entirely original New Zealand album, Original Numbers, and the first to break into the Australian charts with I Wanna Be Your Man. And She's a Mod in 1964 reached #1 in Australia, making the group the first New Zealand artists to have an international hit.
She's a mod, she's a mod, she's a mod, yeah, 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 yeah. She's a mod, she's a mod, yeah, yeah. She's a mod, she's a mod. She won't change anymore.
In 1965, Columbus and his Invaders toured New Zealand and Australia with the Rolling Stones and Roy Orbison. In the same year, they recorded Till We Kissed, made just before they split in 1965, which became New Zealand's biggest selling pop single, eventually selling 100,000 copies.
Till we kissed, I never knew the years that I had wasted. Till we kissed, I never knew the kisses I had tasted. But now I see.
After the group split in 1965, Columbus spent 2 years in the United States with his then-wife, Lavonne, before returning in 1968. He regularly released solo material and then began managing, recording and sometimes composing for a number of late 60s acts, including the Chicks and popular Come On singer Shane. He became a TV star in the pop show Come On and later in the mid-1970s in Ray Columbus Presents New Faces. He won many awards, including Entertainer of the Year, and in 1974 was the first Kiwi rocker or pop entertainer to be awarded an OBE for services to the music industry. Columbus made many other contributions to New Zealand music, promoting it overseas and serving on the Arts Council and professional bodies. He'd suffered poor health for many years, a heart attack in 2004, a stroke in 2008, and a bout of cancer. In 2009, Ray Columbus and the Invaders were presented with the Legacy Award at the New Zealand Music Awards and were inducted into the New Zealand Music Hall of Fame. He's survived by his wife Linda and 2 children and 3 grandchildren. For Checkpoint, Megan Whelan.
12.5 minutes past 6, you're with Checkpoint on RNZ. Controlled public convoys are to be allowed on the inland road in and out of Kaikoura for the first time from tomorrow morning. Now, if you've heard this before, you think, oh, this has happened before. No, some were allowed out on Friday, but the in and out is new. And it's important. The New Zealand Transport Agency, the NZTA, has taken over control of the road and is scheduling controlled convoys in both north and south directions. Our reporter Kate Newton is in Kaikoura and joins us now. Hi, Kate, are you there?
I am, John. How are you?
Yeah, good. How will this work? Because the road they're using is effectively one way, so are they each going to have turns on it?
Yeah, that's right. So in the mornings, starting from tomorrow, it will be northbound traffic. So that's traffic travelling from Mount Lyford, which is the cordon south of Kaikoura, through to Kaikoura on the inland road. And then in the afternoon, it'll be people wanting to leave Kaikoura who get their turn. So they'll be going from 2 p.m. Tomorrow through from Kaikoura at the cordon there at the start of the inland road, through to Mount Lyford, and then on to wherever it is that they want to get to.
Okay, and so the cars will never meet cars going the other way. It will either be all northbound or all southbound.
That's right, and they'll also be supervised, so it won't just be, jump in your car and head down the road as you were. There'll be supervision the whole way along.
Yeah. Okay. This is fascinating because earlier in the program we heard about parents like Kerry King, for example, whose children were evacuated to Christchurch. They were choppered out immediately after the quakes and have been unable to get back. So there are lots of parents in Kaikoura, well, a good number of parents in Kaikoura who don't have their own kids with them. What will this mean to people like them?
That's right. So the Education Minister, Hekia Parata, was estimating today that up to a third of children in Kaikoura had actually left the town.
Wow.
So there are potentially lots and lots of children in the same position as Kerry King's kids. Now, I just spoke to her a few minutes ago. She's aware of the public convoys. She's extremely pleased, as you can imagine. She's just in the process now of trying to register to get out on that outbound convoy first thing or tomorrow afternoon. She wants to go and get her kids herself, and then the plan is to stay in Christchurch overnight or until whenever she can get on one of the inbound convoys coming in. She's just saying, though, that she's heard that there's a lot of interest. The NZTA was saying 150 cars have registered already for tomorrow's convoys. That's both in and out. So she is still trying to register and just waiting to hear back as to whether she can go. So she's obviously just keeping that a little bit quiet from the kids because she doesn't want to disappoint them if she can't get there tomorrow.
Thanks, Kate. Our reporter Kate Newton, who is live from Kaikoura, and we'll follow up on that and see what happened with Kerry's kids and whether they made it back. Police say a land and air search will continue tomorrow for the last person missing after the Kaipara boat tragedy. 56-year-old Taulangi Afamasanga, known as Langi, is the only man unaccounted for after the Francis sank trying to cross the Kaipara bar on Saturday. 7 of the 11 men on board died, including the skipper Bill McNatty. 3 men survived, and of course Taulangi is missing. Laura Tupou reports.
Mr Afamasanga's family was at Parakai Wharf today, the last place his feet touched land before he headed off on the ill-fated fishing trip. His daughter Amy Yero says the family is taking it really hard at the moment.
We're all barely hanging on at the moment. It's hard to breathe, it's hard to eat, it's hard to have a shower, be warm at home in the comfort of your own home. We don't know where he is. He's out there somewhere, cold, wet, shivering. We don't know if he's alive or if he's passed away out there.
Amy Yero says her family really wants him home. 4 of the 7 who died are Tongan. A Tongan community leader, Salote Heleta Lilo, says she and other community leaders are liaising with their families to organise a candlelit service in South Auckland on Sunday evening, which they're hoping to confirm tomorrow. Salote Heleta Lilo says the tragedy highlights the need for more education around wearing life jackets, especially for Pacific communities. She says in Tonga, people grow up going to sea without one.
We go from one small island to the other islands. We don't wear that. We just hop in the boat or canoe and then we just on our way. I would say yes, it's probably not just New Zealand to look into it, but it's something for our government of Tonga perhaps to look into it and try and make an awareness from the island.
Salote Heleta Lilo says they're thinking about starting a water safety awareness campaign or course for the community here. The Coast Guard's Operation Manager, Ray Burge, says its new program on bar safety teaches people to wear life jackets while crossing harbour bars. He says so far at least 300 people have attended its Raising the Bar seminars, which are only available in the northern region, although there are plans to roll them out around the country.
We've had the odd occasion where people come up to us and say, great seminar, I came along to see whether bar crossing's for me and I've decided it's not, I'm going to stick to the inner harbour or go on the east coast. And it's not about scaring them, it's just about preparing them for what could happen and the tools that they need to ensure they come back safely.
Ray Burge says there aren't many incidents on bars, but when they happen, they are significant.
I would say that nationally we would have in the vicinity, I'm not talking serious incidents where boats are flipped and people in the water and people are injured or died. I would say we would probably only have maybe 15 or so a year, but that is my estimation.
Ray Burge says people should be prepared to stay overnight on their vessel if they think a bar crossing makes it too dangerous to return to shore. Mō te hotaka o te ahiahi, ko Laura Tupou aho.
Havelock North resident David Trubridge is staging a protest in his own backyard over water bottling rights. Mr Trubridge says it's outrageous the council is asking residents in a dry and drought-prone area to conserve water whilst allowing corporates to take it and bottle it for free. In protest, he's turned the sprinklers on in his backyard, but he wants people to know that water is precious, and having made his point, he then turned them off.
I think that's quite important, because I'm not here to waste water. I'm not here to encourage people to think this is an excuse for they can soak their gardens and wash their cars.
Okay, so what point are you making?
It's a very complex issue with a lot of things all tied up together. The main issue that I'm concerned about, and I think a lot of people in the Bay are concerned about, is commercial bottling of water in an area where water is not abundant. You know, on the East Coast, we have droughts regularly, and we're drawing water from the aquifer. And personally, I think it's outrageous that we should be giving away this water from the aquifer to commercial companies to make a profit out of, to sell in plastic bottles overseas. That's my concern. And when we started having restrictions because the pumps can't cope with the demand in Havelock North anymore, I just saw red. I thought, well, you know, this is the moment when we can start to say something and really exert some pressure over this.
Were the water bottling companies getting the same restrictions, or are they just able to carry on regardless?
No, they carry on regardless. Their bores are deeper than ours. They go down to cleaner water. The bores for Havelock and Hastings are pretty shallow, so we get the dirty water, the polluted water, as well as all the other problems. They've got clean water, and they can take as much as they want as it stands at the moment.
Have you heard from anyone? Has council turned up? Has anyone threatened to fine you or confiscate your hose? Has any of that stuff happened?
Yeah, people have said, have contacted the council saying, when are you going to prosecute?
So have people been asking for you to be fined? Have some miserable buggers been calling up and saying, fine David Trubridge?
As I understand, that's what I heard secondhand from the council, yes.
And has anyone fined you yet?
Not yet.
And if someone did fine you, would you contest that? Would you continue this protest into court, for example?
No, I wouldn't, because I don't want to make this an issue about giving people the right to just use water willy-nilly. I've made my point. Effectively, I've switched my sprinkler off. I've got far better response than I ever expected to have at the beginning. And so I don't need to do it anymore. And I don't want to, cause other people who are having to struggle because they haven't got enough water because too much is being used. I think we have to be responsible about this. But I've made my point, and I don't condone continued use of sprinklers just because they think that it's wrong to be bottling. We've made our point. Now we've got to push it through with the council and wherever we need to.
Fascinating issue, water in the Hawke's Bay. That's David Trubridge. The monkey heist that gripped Australia is over. A family of pygmy marmoset monkeys stolen from a wildlife park in New South Wales are back together. None the worse for wear. The dad was the last of the 3 stolen monkeys to be recovered. He was left in a box outside a vet's practice late last night. John Madmidge, the owner of the wildlife park, says staff are hugely relieved to have the family back together.
Yeah, they're very complex, have a very complex social structure, and they're part of a family group, and they're reliant upon each other to survive. They're monogamous, so mum and dad, are lifetime partners, and they share raising the children. The mother gives birth to twins, and we had one of the twins stolen. The other one was left here, and of course, stress levels can impact on their ability to breed. They require specialised diets, specialised care, and the thieves had no hope whatsoever of caring for these animals outside of the zoo operation.
2 young men have been charged with theft over the abduction of the marmosets, who are now safe. More than 200 athletes at the top of their game have started battling it out in the pinnacle event of the bowling world in Christchurch, the World Bowls Champs. Held every 4 years, the 2-week-long event has brought bowlers from 34 countries, all fighting for the top spots. They've come into Christchurch to compete. Maya Bari visited Burnside Bowls Club as play got underway.
Well done, buddy. Great shot.
The qualifying rounds of the World Bowls Championships got off to a rolling start in Christchurch this morning, with the best in their field taking to the green in the hope of making a strong start in the competition. Amongst those playing is USA representative Scott Roberts. It's his second time competing in Christchurch, and he says Team USA have high hopes.
We've worked really hard to get to this point, and we're ready to go this year in World Bowls.
And what are you hoping to achieve?
I'm hoping to play well and hopefully bring back a medal and some good memories back from World Bowls here.
More than 200 players from 34 countries are competing this year, the most diverse series ever. Bowls New Zealand's National Development Manager Kaushik Patel says the game is being played by a huge range of people from all around the world.
The New Zealand team is a perfect example. You've got Caitlin Inch, I think she's 21, Mike Kernan, 61. So you can imagine the diverse age group there. But I mean, look at the countries that are here. India, who would have thought India play bowls, and yet they've got a team here.
Bowls New Zealand's president, Kerry Clark, says the competition isn't for the faint-hearted.
You've got to be fit to do this. I mean, it's not old man's marbles. Most of the top teams here have got high-performance athletes. It has a skill level, needs a strong mental approach, but it also needs a strong physical approach. And those who haven't put the effort in will be found wanting.
Players paraded through Christchurch's city centre yesterday afternoon as part of the opening ceremony, led by the New Zealand Army Band. One New Zealander in the parade looking to take out a title is the current Commonwealth Games champion, Jo Edwards. Ms Edwards says the wind conditions in Christchurch make the greens here some of the quickest in the world, which could give the team an edge over their competition.
It should be a benefit for us, but it's anyone's game on the day, and we've all prepared pretty well, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And hopefully this event might shine a bit of a spotlight on the sport.
Yeah, definitely. That's all we want. We want to be treated as a sport and as people that put a lot of time into what they do, and that's hopefully will showcase it here.
And although the players are slightly biased about who the country is to beat, New Zealand seems like one of the top contenders.
Besides the United States, of course, you always got to look for the host country of New Zealand. Australia's good, Scotland, Ireland, England.
Scotland's always been a top nation at bowls.
New Zealand, Australia.
Aside from us, obviously, without being big-headed, the host nation, New Zealand, are probably one to watch, I would suggest.
The women's singles final will be held this weekend, and the men's singles final will be held the weekend after. In Christchurch for Checkpoint, Maya Burry.
6:26. Let's return now to the death of Ray Columbus, and we thought it would be fitting tonight to give the last words to his long-time friend and archivist, Grant Galander. I spoke to him a short time ago, and he reminisced about the year Ray and the Invaders and their hit single, She's a Mod, tore up the charts at a time when everyone was listening to the Beatles.
Because the Beatles had just been, and they were looking for anything with a year in it. And the right look, and Ray had it, and all of a sudden exploded in Australia, and then exploded back home here. 4 months after, nobody was really interested in it. Typical Kiwis, it took somebody else to say how good something is.
That was a cultural cringe, wasn't it? A fine example of it. And so,
quite embarrassing. Really.
Yeah. It went number one of both sides of the Tasman, and it stayed number one for a long time, didn't it?
Especially in Australia, yeah. We didn't really have official sales charts, so it's saying was number one. It's a bit messy over here because there was no official chart at that time. But the Australians had all the charts, and it's very popular. Probably one of the biggest hits probably one of the biggest non-Beatle hits of that particular year, because that was the year of the Beatles. So, but they were competing,
and accompanied by, when they performed, throughout that year really and beyond, the same kind of hysteria that the Beatles got. Perhaps not the camping outside the hotels and stuff, but in the concert, the screaming and the swooning and all of that stuff, they were getting that, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. And to the point that they'd actually feel embarrassed because they'd be getting more screams than some of the overseas acts that they were supporting on some of those tours. He said, I remember Ray telling me once when he was in San Francisco in the late 60s, he bumped into Dave Clark from the Dave Clark Five.
Yeah.
And Ray and the Invaders were sort of on the support act for when Dave Clark Five were in touring New Zealand, and pretty much they were pretty average. They weren't a great group, Dave Clark Five. They were good on record, but they weren't a great live band, and hence Ray Columbus and the Invaders getting all the screams, or the majority. And 4 years later, Ray bumps into Dave Clark in San Francisco and says, "Oh, hi, it's Ray Columbus here, remember me?" And he just walked away.
You're joking. He was packing his sand.
Yeah, even then.
Like, get over it. That's a good story.
Yeah, it was. There's just so many good race stories. They're never ending.
Yeah. And my sense of him is that they were defined by his sheer sparkling-eyed wonder at the preposterousness of all of this happening to him. You know, he constantly looked like a man who'd, been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's a good summing up, actually. He did tell me not long ago that he's not worried about dying because he knows he's done so much that he's fitted 10 lifetimes into his short 74 years, and he had no apprehensions about dying. He said, I've done it all. I'm just such a lucky man. So, yeah.
Grant Galander's talking about his friend Ray Columbus, ending Checkpoint for tonight. It is exactly 6:30. We'll be back tomorrow at 5.
RNZ News headlines now at 6:30. 150 people have already registered for the daily controlled convoys in and out of Kaikoura starting tomorrow. A long-time friend of the late entertainer Ray Columbus, Suzanne Lynch, says he was a performer who was ahead of his time. A parent at a Dunedin special school says investigators into alleged abuse and seclusion of pupils are a witch hunt against excellent teachers. The boat and the remaining passenger missing in the Kaipara tragedy have yet to be found. And New Zealand have achieved an historic clean sweep over Pakistan with victory in the second cricket test in Hamilton by 138 runs. Our next news and weather is at 7.
At any given moment in the middle of a city,
South London spoken word artist Kate Tempest freezes a moment in time on her latest album, Let Them Eat Chaos. I'm Nick Bollinger and I'll be discussing it in the sampler.
I was born on the Jungle River.
I'll be reviewing a set of American